Welcome back to a magical episode of TVGP's Game Club here on the third
Really? We're going to
Saturday
start with the dad jokes already?
of the month. I can't help it. It's in my genes now. This month we're talking about Ikenfell. I'm your host Boston, playing it on the Switch. Joining me as always is Moonpear.
Playing it on the Xbox One X and Series X.
There you go. And Musum.
Hey, playing on the Switch.
All right. Let's get all of the deets out of the way here at the top. This game was released on October 8th, 2020, which if you're listening to when it came out, that's just last month, which is probably the most recent game we've played on the show. Published...
Could we just compare the dates for that release compared to the last game we played?
Right, 1996 versus 2020. Versus 4 weeks ago. Published by Humble Games, developed by Happy Ray Games. Came out on PC, Switch, Xbox One, and PS4. Let's scroll all the way down here. I shared the show notes with my compatriots here because this game has about 400 characters that all matter. Time travel, Metacritic 72, OpenCritic 75. Appears for the release date. I know this is usually a historical record, but all this stuff literally just came out, so I like to talk about like what's surprisingly big or like what indie hits came out. I have no idea. That was last month. So, games. The question we ask every month, top of the pile, middle of the pack, or overlooked?
Well, for me, this was top of the pile because number one, I'm about 6 weeks behind in all of my podcasts at the moment. Thank you very much, Mad Max Minute, for taking all of my time away and making sure that I don't stay up to date. So that means I don't know what games journalists are saying at the moment. However, people whose opinion I respect, kind of, depending on the type of game, told me they were looking forward to this game for ages. I'm looking at you, Boston.
I didn't realize this was a Kickstarter game because I feel like had I seen that Kickstarter, I probably would have tossed at least $20 at this thing. Thankfully, it asked for 25,000 and got like 68,000. So it did very well. Also, a shockingly small budget for this game, which is pretty impressive.
Yes.
I would probably say it's like in between middle of the pack or overlooked. I feel like in JRPG circles, it was sort of like, new like Paper Mario kind of thing coming out. This looks pretty cool. And in other circles, it was just sort of like, okay, another JRPG. Great. And that's kind of a bummer.
You guys are the only ones I have heard about this game from. Like, as far as I can tell, aside from when I specifically Google this game, like no one else has heard of it. So I feel like this game is massively overlooked.
Yeah, I still remember. It's one of those games where I saw it and I was like, "Ooh, look at this thing! Look at this cool art style. I like this."
And then literally we talked about it on the show. It's like, "Oh, Ikenfell comes out on Game Pass," and you were like, "Yes,
yeah." And Ikenfell's a cool game. Well, look, talking about that, let's talk about what we liked, what we didn't like about the game itself. I really liked Ikenfell for a whole lot of reasons. I think even the game's first impression is really positive, where they have a huge bevy of accessibility options. We'll get into the difficulty ones as we go here, but even like photosensitivity mode, like a lot of colorblind options, like there's a whole bunch of stuff in here that you, number one, don't see in games in general, unless they're like multi-billion-dollar AAA games, and you really don't see in JRPGs almost at all. Yeah, I was really impressed by that.
I think the colorblind options are very specifically necessary in this game.
Yes.
Because of the active time battle, however you want to call it.
Yeah, the Paper Mario
active battle thing.
Yeah, Paper Mario inspired battle system.
It makes it vital. I love the fact that like even the big devs now, when they put a colorblind mode in, they're doing the 1, 2, 3 dotted image.
Yes.
And be like, if you can't see one of these, you are colorblind.
Right. Musa mentioned here before the composer of the game, Avi and Sarashu. I ran across their album called Black Box, came out in 2013. highly, highly recommended. Even if you don't like this stuff, they have such a cool melding of like chiptune plus piano plus jazz, and something you kind of don't see that often. And it was really, I was telling these guys before the show, like Black Box came out in 2013, and I really loved it. This came out in 2020, and I was like, hey, it's great to see them doing stuff again. I wonder what they were doing in the meantime. And then I looked, and it was just Steven Universe for 6 years, and I was like, okay then, well, good for them, doing something hugely popular.
I thought you also like that show?
I've never seen it, no. I think I would, but I never got around to it.
My brother loves that show, and he immediately started arguing with me because I briefly looked up the artist, and it's like, oh, they did the Steven Universe thing, and I told my brother that. He's like, they did not. The showrunner did it, and I guess the showrunner did the theme song or something else on the show. So
yeah, I think it's a Rebecca Sugar show. She did a bunch of stuff on Adventure Time too. She's
gotcha.
Very good. Yeah.
I knew I was in for a treat on the soundtrack. When you're in the opening area, you get into a fight, and like there's electronic music with an acoustic guitar on it, which is like acoustic guitar. I feel like is incredibly rare in video games. I think part of that is just like, I guess, music junkie and me talking. Like, guitar is, especially acoustic, is not necessarily the easiest thing to blend in with electronic instruments when you're producing and fitting it into the EQ spectrum. And these composers, I think, are freaking masters. They go through so many different styles in this game. It's
crazy. I bought the soundtrack on Bandcamp. Support Bandcamp artists like Musum. And I bought it for like $5, and it's like 85 tracks. It's incredible. Like, there's so much music in this game, and I can't think of a track that I didn't like. The battle theme is really great. The boss themes are great. I
can give or take, depending on whose it is, the character introduction music, where specific characters have their specific songs.
Yeah, the vocal ones I think are... It's an interesting thing, but I agree with you. I think there's like one I really liked. I think it might be Rooks.
I really liked Rooks. I absolutely hated. I think it wasn't Purty. It might have been Petronella's. I despised.
Yeah, like Purty and Petronella got one, and Ema got one too.
And Ema's one taught me how to say the game's name as Ikenfell, since that's how they say it in the song. Although part of me's still like, man, people who sing songs don't necessarily know how the creators pronounce things.
Don't you worry. Boston tweeted out a while back when we first announced this, I think, that literally everyone on the dev team pronounces it differently.
Yeah, Chevy Ray, the lead developer, was like, hey, we all pronounce it differently. I don't care. Like, just play the game, man, whatever. So that makes me feel better, because I say Ikenfell, but like, you want to say Ikenfell, like, whatever. It's a Magic Academy. People probably call it 25 different things.
And the honestly, like, the lyrics and such kind of made me realize how much this was aimed at little kids. Like, it's got some dark things in it, but so much of it is about acceptance and healing, like, throughout the storyline.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll successfully hit a younger age range, but I mean, it's super well written, you know?
Yeah. I think the thing for me that I really like, and I feel like I've been running into a lot of stuff lately that's like this, is it's very... it doesn't make a big deal out of each of the characters being who they are. Like, some characters are aromantic, some are non-binary, some go by they, them pronouns, and there's sort of a wide spectrum of different people represented, and I like that the game never...
It doesn't make a deal.
Yeah, it doesn't even make a deal. It's just like, yeah, man, this is who Rook is. Like, this is who Petronella is. Like, whatever. It doesn't even really matter. Like, I'm not gonna make a big deal about it. I think the only person that makes a big deal about it is what is the Thunder lady who's like Marit, whatever your main character's name, however you pronounce that, her rival.
That Gilda?
Gilda? Yeah, Gilda.
Yeah.
I like that she has such a.
Is so openly gay. She's just like, you're so cute, and I'm so
I
gay.
can't even take it. Let's fight. Yeah, I like Gilda a lot. I know she's supposed to be this kind of like fun foil, but Gilda is really great.
She's probably my favorite character in the game. So
yeah, Gilda's really good.
I also like. I mean, like you said, like they don't make a big deal out of it, and I had that. I noticed it with Petronella because the first time people start talking about Petronella, they are consistently using they them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, so that's probably a non-binary thing. And then I had to double check with my wife on Ema because I was like, I know that's a gender neutral term. I believe. I think it is. I'm not sure. Yeah, and then like while one of the text boxes were up, I just poked my wife and was like, "You're the expert in this. I'm correct in that's gender neutral, isn't it?" And she was like, "Yeah, pretty much."
I think that's the first time I've seen that in a game, other than like giving an option to say, here's the pronouns that I'm going to give my character. It's just, here's a character in the story that uses these pronouns. I think that's really great.
So funny story, all of that went right over my head. Like I did not pick up on any of the pronoun stuff. Like Petronella, I think accidentally read online somewhere that she was, I don't know what the word is, like she's not into pronouns. People. Yeah.
Oh, aromantic.
Yeah, aromantic. So
which you don't find out until literally the end of the game.
Yeah, where I like some of that. Well, spoilers for the rest of the episode. By the by, we'll probably start diving in and out of spoiler stuff. But I liked in that epilogue, she's just like, "Yeah, I'm okay. No thanks."
Yeah. Well, and I feel like her whole storyline with I'll call her Marit, and the main character, and or not Marit. I guess it'd be Safina and
Rook. The trio.
Yeah, the trio.
Like I feel like it was kind of pointing to that or alluding to that with that particular storyline with Safina and Rook hooking up for a little bit and her not wanting to intrude, kind of thing.
Right. Which I thought that was a really great storyline, like this rift and the split between the trio, because it felt this normally. Yeah, like this. That's literally what I was gonna say. Like normally, that feels like a negative, where it's like, oh god, this whole part just feels so high school. But it's like, man, I feel like you really nailed this thing, where that feels really age appropriate for this group, where you have this friction and this static.
That's the difference. Like when we say that feels so high school, usually we're talking about super hyper space marines who are
like 45-year-old people,
genetically engineered, acting like kids. Right. In this case, it's kids acting like kids.
That's a good point. Yeah, it feels appropriate. Yeah.
Honestly, this game has probably some of the more like natural feeling relationships between characters, friendships, and romantics, and people with crushes over 90% of the games out there, because most games, view of relationships is I'm a manly man, I'm going to punch a wall and then make love to this space alien over here.
Right.
And this is
the ones that are looking forward to the Mass Effect remake.
I was going to say, like, you pulled the renegade button, so everyone's like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah. But they just do such a good job, I feel like, of showcasing these various relationships. Like, I think one of my favorite stories in the game was where did her name go? The girl with the illusion for a face for most of the game.
Purdy.
Yeah.
I think
her story's great.
Like, she starts out just this angry character, and you think she's just this stereotype bully, and then eventually you find out, her and Safina were good friends back in the day, and then you find out there's a rift there, and like, I don't know about you guys, but it seemed like every 4 months in high school, I changed out friends inadvertently.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing with her as well is I think the writing does a very good job of not pointing you in that direction, because she's also one of the rich kids.
Right.
And video games have taught us that rich kids are naturally evil. Hello, Draco Malfoy. I'm looking at you here.
Right.
like the rich people are the bad people. It's like, no. She's not bad. She's just got history that you don't know about yet.
She's just angry, and for a really good reason too. And I like too that they close the loop on so much stuff in the epilogue, but I'm really happy they closed the loop on the. Here's the singer at Ikenfell. Like, here's this big performance a couple of years ago, and
I clocked that immediately. I was like, "That's totally her. That's totally."
yeah, I was like,
her.
this is her color scheme. Like this seems. And there's a moment where like her and Ima are like alone, and Ima's checking the magic on Purdy, and I was like, I bet something happened to like. I bet you're gonna. It's gonna be like Death Stranding. You're gonna find that they have some sort of like everything is okay on the face, but everything else is rough.
I was waiting for like the spell when the illusion cleared. I was waiting for like piano keys to be lodged into her brain or something through something
Right.
Saf did.
Right. Yeah, I thought that stuff was super well done. I have read some criticisms from I'll put this nicely and say horrible people that are upset that there are a lot of LBGTQ representation
Go
in
to
this
hell.
game. Yeah,
Like, go to hell.
get
I don't-
stuffed,
Who cares?
I don't think there is a cis white male in this game.
and that's awesome. Like
I agree.
there are very few men in general in this game, and that's dope.
Sigbert, yeah,
We
Sigbert
shouldn't
you
have to
don't know
make-
about.
We shouldn't have to make any big deal that there's not a cis white
Yeah.
male. But
Yeah, it's really great to see so many types of people represented in this game in the way that I hope there's that moment that happens that you see online so much where it's like, oh man, that's me in a game. Like that's exactly how I feel. Like that's my pronouns. Like this is super cool. They're in a game. Like I think that's super great.
If you haven't seen it, go see the young woman's reaction to the new Dead by Daylight Survivor.
Mm.
That is a prime example of it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, I mean, again, like, who cares if there isn't that much straight white guy representation? And I say this in a chat with two other straight white guys.
In our 30s with facial hair, like we're all
Yeah.
we're
let me go
represented
get
in
my
media.
car and record a video.
Like, who cares?
Yeah.
We literally have every other video game on the planet
Yep.
to choose from.
Yeah.
And guess what? These days, when I can choose a woman, I'll choose a woman.
Yep. Hands down.
I don't understand people. Like, I get, like, if you have a self-esteem thing, maybe you go to a character creator and make yourself, but, like, for the most part, I'm interested in other people's perspectives and experiences in the world.
Yeah.
I don't want to play some character who agrees with me. I want to play some character who's divergent and is going to show me a new aspect of the world, you know?
Yeah. I play as myself every day. Like I will play as someone else in a role-playing game. I feel like it's really indicative of how effective the story is because we've spent 18 minutes and 45 seconds talking about pretty much just the story. But I think it's one of those things where you go into an RPG and you're like, all right, yeah, it's a magical school. Oh, you have surprise magical power. Oh, no one saw ice or fire powers before. I feel like within like 2 hours.
Your sister is the evil villain. Shocker.
Right. And it's just like, oh no. And within 2 hours, just like, oh no, they got me. I'm all the way in. This story really, really grabbed me. I do have to give a lot of credit to Ibn Oxley and Bax, the green and the red wizard.
Yeah.
I hated them until the very end. Literally until the end.
I'm always tickled by characters like Ibn, where it's like he's this famous wizard who's useless and just like
it's the Ginyu Force, dude. Come on,
he's 100%. Yeah, he's very much the Ginyu Force. Like it's just like this guy coming in and being like, "Hello, people! What? Ooh, fantastic magic!" And he's just and the only person that's good is Bax with him, and. Massive spoilers. I wasn't warning last time. Super huge spoilers. I really like that he's the final boss of the game. Because it's just like, hey, by the way, he really is a good wizard. And this is why. And it's like, oh no.
tears a rift in time and space like something from Bleach, and then becomes like a super villain hollow guy.
Yeah, that was... So, this brings me to probably my biggest problem with the game.
It's the combat. It's my biggest problem with
It's
the game.
the difficulty. I really like the combat. I feel like earlier this year we played Saturday Morning RPG, like a hot fire of a game, and I feel like...
Why would you...
Hey, we're
I
gonna
just
do...
puked in my mouth a little bit.
We're gonna do the ranking episode next, so let's get ready to talk
Good
about
thing we
that
can
thing
get that
again.
out the way quick.
Yeah. I feel like Ikenfell accomplishes what Saturday Morning RPG was trying to do. But I feel like there's still... My criticism with games like these is I don't mind the attacking side of things. Because if you don't get a great on the attacking, you do a little bit of less damage, that's not a big deal.
Oops on the defense is a killer.
Yeah, it's on the defense and especially the status effect side, where like if you get poisoned, the poison does, number one, doesn't go away by itself. Number two, does so much damage. And if you don't get a great on your defense, you get poisoned and you're kind of in a bad spot. This is the instance where I wish that these games had a like too slow, too fast sort of system, where it's like, oh, you got it was like what, great, good, or it just didn't display anything at all.
It said oops.
And an oops, yeah. I really wish between that like good and oops was sort of like, hey, you're a little too slow, you're a little too fast, because sometimes like the attacks that the enemies or you would do are like purposely too long, where they like swish and you're like, now it's my time, and it swishes again and you're like, no, I missed it.
Yeah, it's the cup game. It's
right,
trying to fool you with the way it moves around.
Right. And I don't mind that on regular enemy fights, because that's sort of fun where it's like, oh, all right, they got me, they did 3 damage on me and I have 35 health, that's all right, that was kind of fun. But most of the boss fights, you're seeing those attacks for the first time, and if it's attacking you 4 or 5 times in a turn and doing status effects and stuff, that got really punishing.
Yeah. I wish they just, like, I think one simple solution, it's not going to completely solve the combat balancing. Like, I mean, effectively, the combat is unbalanced. I think is what it comes down to a degree. I wish they just put a ring around the character or somewhere, like do the Shadow Hearts thing, and this is where you have to hit the button so you'll know exactly where it is. Like the animations, I mean, don't get me wrong, the animations in this game are freaking top notch and
they're
gorgeous.
Really good.
My only complaint about them is sometimes they take too long in combat, but I think that's just because of the difficulty of combat and how long it takes you to get through a battle. Thankfully, there's not really any grinding in this game that I could tell. At least I didn't grind. Any grinding I did was purely accidental because I was trying to figure out where to go.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually a really good idea. Like, you could even have it in a case of 2 instances. You could have the normal animation thing that they do, like to use Mariette's Blaze as an example. This is the one with the diamond in the middle of the screen. Swipe down diagonally, top left to bottom right, and then moves the diamond and does the same from top right to bottom left. You could still have that on the screen and use what FIFA have referred to as a training circle, which is literally a circle around your character that has button prompts.
Yeah.
And you can do that and have the option to have that circle on or off, depending. So when the circle hits a line, you hit the button to get you used to the timing.
Right.
And then, let's say you're used to it, you can just be like, okay, turn off the training circle now, please. I just want to do it with the actual animations on the screen.
Yeah.
Like
go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, they have a lot of clever, like, tactics things in battles. It just
That's what I was just
takes
gonna say.
so long to get through. Like, my end strategy was I'd use Married. I'd throw down that power that put in the 4 squares that gave power-ups to anyone standing and casting. And then I'd have Ima. I'd have her cast regeneration on everyone. And then I would just go to town with Gilda.
Yep. Yeah, and it's kind of, it's a real, not a, not a disappointment. It's kind of a bummer because I think in Ikenfell's breaking of SRPG traditions, I think it does some really interesting things with the genre. I love SRPGs, and I didn't know this was one before starting. I thought it was like a lineup on the left, lineup on the right sort of thing. I love that in a lot of SRPGs, when you take your move turn, you're done. And it locks you in when it says, well, I hope you didn't make a mistake. Like, you can't move again.
The freedom to reposition at will is
it's so good. And they completely dropped any sort of like mana or MP or magic points or whatever. I think that's incredibly smart. The only time they have cooldowns is for like really strong healing spells, and it's just like 5 turns until you use it again.
They have limited uses. Like my main party was Maret, Ema, and Rook. And Rook can drop a Sentinel, which is his trap ability, as many times as you want, like 4 times. And Ema's trap was once. Like you can only put one of their traps down, and you can't put another one down until that one is activated.
And I feel like that's really fair, and I think that's a really cool system. And and I probably would have had a much larger problem with this game's difficulty, because for me, I don't think it's the timing or the battle system or the bosses or anything. I think all of that stuff is good. I think it's just the difficulty.
Boss fights, we talked about this, we normally don't, but we mentioned in passing to each other that boss fights are so long compared to regular fights. And regular fights are long at the best of times.
And the boss fights are really hard, and I think the biggest plus for me on this game is after like the 3rd or the 4th boss fight, it was either the Cauldron or the Star guy. After that, I was like, look, this game is really hard, and I'm just going to turn on the auto grate. And I had boss fights were still really hard, even with you hitting every single grate automatically. So that would be my recommendation, is like, if you really want super high difficulty, you want to try the boss battles a couple times, that's okay. Checkpoints are actually pretty good in this game. But if you don't want to, or you just kind of want to go through and experience the story, just put in an auto grate and just kind of enjoy the ride.
Also worth a mention is the instant victory option.
Yes. Yeah, you just want to skip a whole bunch of stuff?
I used twice.
Okay. Secret bosses?
Twice on the 2 secret bosses.
I didn't even know that was there.
Yeah, it's in the accessibility option. It's basically, when you turn on and that like bottom bar of choices on a character when you're in battle, there's just a button that says
escape, whatever.
Yeah, just win this battle.
Because I tried the first secret boss battle, the mirror one.
Oh, it's so hard.
I was in it for probably an hour, and I'm like, I'm getting nowhere on this. I don't understand. Like, I can get about half the team knocked down at once, and they just seem to come back and then tear me a new one. So
yep, that one is one of the hardest fights in the game. That one is the one that caused me to put on the instant victory.
Yeah,
that one and the book one, the secret book fight.
Oh,
I also had to do it with.
I assumed that was the all cat. I didn't know there was a 3rd secret fight.
The 3rd secret fight is the place where you get Perty from, where she's cracked in the mirror. When you get a cutscene of the floor cracking there, this book pops out and goes, and then it cuts away from it. And then if you go to the book, it's a secret boss fight.
Yeah.
Worth mentioning, my super secret combat strategy towards the end of the game, well, basically as soon as I hit level 20, was I'll always stumble over the names. Marit had her final spell, which is Meteor.
Yeah.
Which you can only use when you're low on health. So literally I started every fight with her low on health, because that thing was one shot on everything that wasn't a boss.
It's very strong. Yeah,
I never even used that power because I was so deathly afraid of her getting
because
low.
The description for it is deceptive, because it says when you're low on HP. What that actually means is when your HP turns yellow, so 50% down.
Yeah, so it's not as scary as it seems.
It means yellow. So like I had 46 HP, and as soon as I get to like 27, I'd be like, hey, you have a meteor, you have a meteor, or you have a meteor, and then I'd leave the battle, heal the other two and just leave her alone and then go into the next battle with her
Right.
ready to start throwing that at people.
Yeah, that's interesting because my final group was Moret, Ima, and Purdy. Because Moret had the strength boosting, Ima had the regen, which was honestly way
Super
stronger
OP.
than it should have been. Yeah, and Purdy had the defense up. She could like do another like a triangle an X-shaped defense up, and that was really strong.
I think Emma also had the one of my favorite spells, which was the heal and attack spell,
Oh yeah,
which was so overpowered because you have to do both. You have to heal a
yep.
friend and damage an enemy at the same time,
It's
but
really
it does it
smart, really creative.
in a cross around you.
Yep.
So you can, more often than not, you'll find yourself in a position where you can literally use it to heal one or two people and do massive damage to one enemy as well.
Yeah,
It was
most fights I
so
was
helpful.
in like an L shape, like a 90-degree shape, where it's just like, all right, all three of you are gonna stay here. I'm just gonna keep you all buffed, and everything's gonna be great. Yeah, I really like the battle system in here. I think I feel like its biggest negative is the difficulty, which thankfully there are two accessibility options to get around it. So even if you find the game too hard, the victory option is there, and just like I think the story is well worth experiencing, even if you don't want to do the battle system. Like just keep hitting that victory option. Just keep skipping through. Like I think that's the smartest thing, because I think this is. I think Ikenfell is probably one of the biggest surprises I've played in RPGs in a couple of years, and it's one of my biggest surprises this year. Which is just like, yeah, it has a real slow start, but like once it gets going, like this is a really cool thing. Like this is a really cool game.
Like
Yeah.
I'd put my like of these characters like maybe not as high as Chrono, but somewhere under like Chrono and Mass Effect. Like
Yeah,
to me, I really like this game a lot. I
yeah.
would love it if they made any sort of sequel, whether they use the same characters or whether it's all the original characters are teachers now and you're a new group of kids.
Oh
And,
man, that'd be
Mhm.
great. Love
like
it. Ikenfell
they
University. Let's do it.
could do 1,000 different ways. I would just
Yeah.
love to see. I like these characters to such a degree. I'd love to even see them as background NPCs. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I only really have two complaints with the game, and one is the combat being really difficult at times, which is negatable. The only
Yeah.
other thing I have, the only other complaint, you just mentioned it, is it can be slow. Like
Yeah.
it has big chunks where it goes very, very slowly. And don't get me wrong, it pays everything off at the end. Like I can't think of any questions that I have that
The
did not get
epilogue
answered
is
by the
so
end of the
good.
game. But it's one of those things that's like, yeah, that third and fourth chapter are probably a little bit too long.
Yeah, you could speed up a little bit of that. And I sort of get what they were going for, but sometimes where it's like I need to get into this door, so I need to get these closed, but I need to talk to this person, but I need to do this thing. It's like, all right, I'm like 5 quests deep to kind of go back to doing the thing I need to do. Like there might be one layer too many in some of these, but
You did just mention my favorite boss though, the Snatcher.
But the Snatcher is really great. A really weird dungeon, probably one of my least favorites. But a really, just one of those really great JRPG characters where it's like, man, this thing is just real weird, and I have a real affection towards it.
I think the main dungeon I disliked, and I don't remember the name of it now, but I think it was the one after the Snatcher, the maze where you got to find the ghost hearts.
Oh God.
The archives.
Archives, thank you. Man, I was. The problem with us playing a new game is I can't Google it and find the answer.
Right.
Yep.
I
literally went on Discord to ask for help, and in the process of typing out the question and then hitting enter, I discovered the answer.
Yeah, because I was trying to explain to Moon, like, you got to push the blocks down a floor and down again, and then go up a floor because it teleported up above you. But how do I explain that in like Euclidean geometry? And you're like, oh, you already found it. I was like, okay, never mind. Yeah, my biggest problem with the archives is there should have just been 3 hearts, because the place was big enough that finding whatever fourth heart you needed, it was just. But
well, and what was the point of having like the fog of war stuff in there? Like, we get it, it's dark. Could you have just done like a filter and still let us see the whole room? And
I feel like it's unfortunate that Ikenfell has all these little problems, because none of them to me are deal breakers. I've put up over the last 30 something years so much BS in JRPGs I haven't liked, but
dude, you put up with BS in every type of game you don't like. You played Destiny 1 for too many hours.
I know. Destiny 1 is... Yeah. But I feel like the I will be pushing this game pretty hard to a bunch of people because it's on Game Pass on PC and Xbox. So the barrier to entry is nearly non-existent. So I feel like you can recommend this to a lot of people, like, hey, if you like Paper Mario, or if you like Harry Potter-ish stories, which in 2020 is sort of a problem, but like, if you like magical universities or stuff like that, or coming-of-age tales, which I'm always a sucker for, this is a really great game, but... don't be afraid to use the auto-grade. Don't be afraid to use this stuff. And I feel like if you're not used to a lot of RPGs, if you're not used to difficult games, then I feel like some of these speed bumps, they're not even barriers, they're just sort of speed bumps, might turn some people off. Which I get, but they'd be missing a game that I think is really special.
I mean, it is a game you have to experiment with the magic spells that you get. Like, luckily, they don't give them to you all at once. So you do get to explore them a bit. But like in a lot of RPGs, you can get by with not using any of the status effects or clearing or anything like that. And I think they're an absolute must in this game.
Pretty sure the first time I played Final Fantasy VIII, I beat that entire game just using attacks.
Right. Yeah, Ikenfell is a really great surprise. It's probably one of my favorite games this year. I'm glad we got around to it. And I'm glad we all kind of gave it a shot, because I think it's... We talked here for about 40 minutes, which I think is probably the longest episode we've had this year. I feel like...
I don't know. I think Oberdin might beat it, dude.
Yeah, Oberdin might beat it, yeah. But I feel like Ikenfell is something that is a really special game, and I don't think we get a lot of those that often. This is a really cool, unique, special thing that I hope more people try.
I mean, it's worth mentioning as well, like, out of the three of us, I'm the dude who isn't a fan of JRPGs. I'm the dude who is not a fan of SRPGs, unless you have that particular tickle that I get.
Right.
Like, Disgaea is a good example of that. Like, give me every Disgaea, but stay away from me with your Final Fantasy Tactics kind of stuff.
Right.
But I thoroughly enjoyed this game.
Yeah.
I don't know if it will make my game of the year list, and if it does, I don't know how high it will go.
Sure.
I'm sure that's when my bias might show, but it's thoroughly enjoyable. And like you said, the barrier to entry is zip if you're an Xbox user at this point.
Yep.
I don't beat most games. And I haven't, if you've listened to this cast, you've seen me not beat at least half to 75% of whatever games we've played. And I beat this game within like the first week or two.
Yeah, you two were both like monsters for this.
Once I got past like those first 2 or 3 hours, I'm just like, yep, I'm on my Switch in bed at night playing like 2 hours at a time. Like, this is, it got its claws in me real quick.
Good artwork, good music, and good characters can carry me through a lot. And I love tactics games, and I think having the time the button presses, I wasn't particularly good at that, but I didn't straight up just keep it on great until, the star boss. But that's also because I lost like a half hour of my time dying to that boss.
Right. Right.
But it's a phenomenal game, man. I adore it. Like, if they do a limited run, like collector's edition, I'm all over that.
Yeah, I would definitely snag one of those. Yeah. All right, well, that's Ikenfell, and we forgot to pick our next game, so we'll save that here for our next episode, the ranking episode, which we'll be doing next month. We're bringing that back from last year, so we're going to rank all the games we played this year, and that's our episode. We'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye.